Hello and welcome back to the podcast. So we've got a really interesting episode as we're going to be talking all about the state of analytics or data science education. And we've got someone who has got a PhD in a data sciencey space. So it's, Angela, correct me if I'm right here, is bioinformatics, PhD?
Biomedical informatics.
Wow. So that's just sounds extremely complex. Is that fair?
Yeah, it was complex. It was a lot of work, a lot of self-directed learning. So yeah, it was complex on more than one level.
Cool. So what are your thoughts? Because off air, we were talking about there seems to be some inconsistencies amongst degree programs. So someone who's been, I mean, you've been steeped in analytics, higher education, or data science, higher education for years now. What are some of the trends that you're seeing?
So some of the things I'm saying is that some degree programs are offering the same type of content that you can find online for either free or at a much lower cost. And a degree program will be a major investment. We're not talking about $100. We're talking about thousands. So
Right.
I would want to know if before embarking in a degree program, am I going to get something different out of this that I can't find myself?
That's a really interesting point. So I'm going to be teaching a class at Greensboro College starting literally in 2 days. It's called Case Studies in Business Analytics. What's the differentiator there?
Well, it sounds like you're going to be working on real world problems. That's immediately what I thought.
So
And
I
that's
guess
something.
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, like what is the kind of the it factor of what's the justification behind paying $1,000 versus $10.99 on Udemy?
Well, so for business case studies and business analytics,
Or just in general?
well, to me, what would be the drivers? Like I said, you're going to be getting something different, something that mirrors what you would expect to see in the real world. That would be what I would be paying for. It's like I'm going to get a lot of content and great information so that I can be successful when I'm trying to find that role, or maybe propel me forward in my current career. And also when you're paying for a course, a directed course where you're not doing it yourself, you're hoping to get that mentorship, network among your other classmates. I was going to say your other students, among your other classmates. Also, just that support system. So that's what I would be paying for: the content, the network, the mentorship, getting help when you need it. You can ask a TA or the instructor. So that's what I would expect. That's what I'm paying for.
Yeah, I was about to say this is what I think the differentiator is specifically like the real world case studies, because I kind of do that in the Udemy courses. And by the way, didn't you take my Tableau course?
I did take your course, and I emailed you to tell you that I loved it, and it was great.
Awesome. Right, but there's kind of like well, number one, I think a lot of people will sign up for like 15 online courses and won't finish any of them. So there's kind of an accountability and like paying the bigger bucks. But I would kind of caution the audience, those of you who are listening, to that's a very poor strategy for growing your career.
Paying for multiple courses and not finishing half of them?
I would say it's on both sides of that, actually. Like if you're not, I don't know how to articulate this.
I think I see what you're saying, because I've done that. I'm like, right. I'm ready. I'm going to hit this hard. Let me buy all these courses. And then I don't have time to finish any of them.
Right.
I think what you're saying is you want to be strategic about what you're investing in and realistic.
Well, I think I was talking with someone recently. You need to have some intentionality behind your education strategy. So I think a lot of students go and get their master's degree as a form of life avoidance. Like they don't want to go get a big boy or big girl job.
There's some of that. And also I think they think that's going to get them a job, and sometimes it doesn't. And I fell into that too.
Right. Because I mean, but And it almost seems like a little bit predatory. And I mean, and I'm kind of like culpable of that, of people I know, and cause I can see the analytics on the backside of the course. I would say like 90% of the students I have don't make it past like lecture 10. And
Oh,
I feel like almost guilty about that. Because Udemy is constantly running these sales and these emails, and there's like a whole marketing machine behind that. And it's like, you're kind of capitalizing on people's, I don't know, like want to just advance themselves. But then there seems to be somewhat of a, like a misconnection there.
what percentage of your students don't make it past that point?
Man, I didn't know that this conversation was going to go this
Oh,
way, or else I would have
sorry.
like looked it up. I don't have like hard statistics. I can just see um,
You just see
like,
all the drops.
well, I can
Or
see like on Udemy, I can see the percentage that they've completed. And I mean, there are rock stars who will get everything done within a week. And I'm kind of curious if like maybe their company paid for it and they have to get that done in a certain timeline. But it seems like there's not always a good motivation to finish. It's almost like a form of consumerism. Like you're just buying things and it makes you feel good when you buy it, but you don't get the value out of it.
yeah, I think that there might be a few reasons, and I kind of thought about this myself. That's when I really started trying to guide my career. I had, like you said, I need to be way more intentional because I
Mm-hmm.
used to be in that habit of just buying courses and didn't finish any of them. And so one, I kind of underestimated my work, how much work I would be doing, how heavy my course load would be, how tired I would be when I got home.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't good at like, once I got home, like setting aside time for my courses. Like, and I know some people have families and they have way more responsibilities than I do. So then there's that. It's a matter of really planning for this. Like each day I'm going to do this for an hour,
Mm-hmm.
and no matter how tired I am, no matter what's going on, or you have to tell your family or your kids to, this is what I'm going to be doing. Like it takes like real, like like strategy with your schedule and a commitment. And
Right.
I know not everyone is really able to do that well. I
Mm-hmm.
think it takes practice. And so for me, it took practice.
Well, it's interesting because the way that I learned analytics is not how I'm teaching. Like I started my own consulting agency and I had to solve the problems because I was charging the clients. So it was kind of like a trial by fire setup. And I think getting that classical higher education setup, there is a cost. So if you don't do well, you get a C or you get a D or you get an F. To where
Mm.
like the online courses, there's not that incentive structure.
Yeah, it's kind of like you, if you don't finish it, oh well, it was just $10 type of
Right.
thing.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
yeah, so I try when I spend money, since it's like not a decision I make by myself anymore because I'm married. I tell myself I first make sure that this is something I think I'm going to really benefit from, and then I make a plan. I'm going to do this every day for an hour, and that's why I like the coding challenges. Like 100 days of coding, 100 days of learning. Even though I haven't been that good on keeping up with that lately,
Hmm.
but for a while I was doing it every day, and I set aside an hour each day, and that was what I did, and I stuck with it. And I was like, I did that. So it takes, like you said, commitment, intentional. You choose courses you know that you want to do and you know that you're going to finish. You choose courses that you think you're going to get something out of, and you do that every day.
Okay, so getting back, we went down a total rabbit hole here.
Oh,
Let's pull.
sorry.
No. This is fantastic. I'm loving like what you're putting down. So that was a red flag. The first red flag as when you're looking for specifically higher education. Like if they're just basically repurposing something you could get for $10, are there any other red flags, or do you want to move on to some green flags?
I would think that would be the biggest thing.
Mhm.
And I would say that would be the biggest thing. I've also taken some courses that sounded really good at universities. Then you get there and it's you basically meet for a week and then you turn everything online. It was basically an online course, but I paid top dollar for it.
Hmm.
So I wasn't thrilled about that. I don't know if I'd call that a red flag because I think some students got a lot more out of it than I did at that time. This was years ago.
So that was through a higher education
It
institution.
it was through a university, and so
So,
I would drive down to campus. I'd leave work early. We'd meet for an hour once a week, and then everything else we did was totally online.
so there, I mean, if we want to like quantify the value of education, a lot of it's tied back to the brand. Like if you're taking a course through Harvard and it is online, or like a Harvard online certificate, that there's value in the brand recognition there.
Yeah,
But I
that's
mean, that's kind of like a nuanced thing in that you could say I went to Harvard, even though it was basically you're taking like these, I don't know, automated online courses.
yeah, you're paying top dollar for something that you can find, like take one of your courses, and it was a
Mm-hmm.
great value. I got a lot out of it, and I'm not saying that yours was not an exceptional course. But yeah, I feel like some of these things you're paying for the name. Maybe
Right.
I don't know if that's the same discussion, but yeah, I guess
Well,
you have to keep that in mind when you're
yeah.
with
Well,
some of these online.
have you seen that meme where it's like a Hulu subscription, $99 a month, Netflix, 149, Stanford, 59,000.
I have not seen that meme, and I love memes, so I need to go look for that
Yeah,
now.
go find that one. Okay, so getting on to green flags now. What should you look? So we've identified what you need to kind of weed out. What should you
Mhm.
be looking for?
If they have like case studies courses, capstones, theses types of things where I think the value I've noticed I've gotten out of a lot of online courses is when I worked on a project. That was my own idea, like, because you have to go, since you have to finish the course, you're motivated to go out and do something that you're kind of passionate about, and then you'll look up how to do it, and you're willing to read, you're willing to put in the time. So I think capstones, that's a good flag if you see that
Yeah,
there.
I I feel like this interview is almost like twofold value because I'm asking you questions that I want to know as kind of an educator moving into the higher ed space. Because I'm teaching the case studies class in the fall at Greensboro College, and in the spring, I'm teaching the analytics minor capstone, where I'm connecting the students with clients of mine. And then they're going to be expanding my consulting work out, which I think is brilliant because I win. I get to strengthen my relationship with my clients. My clients get more bandwidth to take on more analytics projects, and the students get real world experience. And I can also help them write it up on their LinkedIn and their resume of like, here's the outcome, and here's how
It's
you need
like
to talk about it.
what do you call those when it's work study? Is that what they're called?
Um, I'm not familiar with work study because in my MBA, I got an MBA with a concentration in analytics, and that last semester was a capstone course, and I worked with Hainesbrand studying
Okay.
the email marketing, and that was probably the single most valuable piece of education I think I've ever gotten from higher ed.
That to me that's like a win. Like
Mm,
it exposes students to real world problems. They get to work on something, yeah, like real world. You get college credit.
right.
That I would pay for that, like in
Awesome.
itself.
That's lovely to hear because I've like had these assumptions, but I mean you're so steeped in like the higher education space. That's like awesome to have those assumptions validated
And
from your
I've been on the other
perspective.
side as a student. And so, I kind of know what it's like to be a practitioner and a student. And so I know as a student what I would pay for, and I know what I'd be looking for. And I remember how disappointed it was when we're working on problems that I've never seen in real world,
Yeah.
on data that was perfect and that was totally clean. Cleaning data is actually most of what I do. So, encountering things that you're actually going to see in the world is really, really beneficial to students. They'll be working through it. It'll be challenging for them, but they will give that class high remarks. They'll probably say it was tough. So there will be those students that were like, I wasn't expecting this, but they will thank you later.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I'm kind of trying to distill down like my experience in higher education, because I feel like the specific analytics courses I took were thought up and cooked up by purely academics. And there was a disconnect between what goes on in the real world. And I don't want to be overly
that was my
critical,
complaint.
but it's like curious to me, like why, like what's going on with that? I guess it's like the hierarchy and like the power structure.
Or it was, devised by someone that's been working in academia. And since before coming to the university, I was working in industry. And so even at the university, our data is really not perfect. So that's been a theme all across the board. So I kind of knew what to expect because I was in industry for a while. And so, yeah, I'm looking at it through the lens of an industry person. And not, because in academia, our deadlines are different. Sometimes the data we work with is different. It's just different. So if I were devising a course, it would be based on industry.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so now you're talking through your experience. I didn't realize that you worked in industry, I guess, before you went back for your PhD?
Yes, I was actually working while I did the PhD.
Oh, wow. So I guess let's get this Batman origin story. So what has been your rise to fame? Because you're now LinkedIn famous.
Oh, yeah, that was not intentional. It just happened. So I started so I got my bachelor's in criminology, and I say that because that is where the seed of, love for data was planted. Criminology is very much a data-based degree. You work with crime data. That's the whole thing. You learn how to perform statistics by hand. This was a long time ago, like more than 10 years ago. I don't want to date myself, but yeah, so that's where it started. Mm-hmm. And then I pursued a master's in public administration, which was also very much about data, but the types of things you do with it are a little different, and you read articles, peer-reviewed articles. You're presenting a lot. You learn how to present your findings, which was something I was not good at back then. It took some practice. And then from there, I went into information technology. And then from there, I went into biomedical informatics. And so I worked at a medical health, not medical device. It's like a medical equipment company. It was called Journeys Healthcare when I lived in the Chatsworth area for a period of time. And then I started really working in health informatics. So it started to really gain some traction around like 2011 and 2012. And kind of stayed there until very recently. And I started working for the University of New Mexico. So health informatics is where I've been living for several years.
Yeah, analytics in the healthcare space is so interesting. I've done some like survey analysis for a company who sells medical devices, but I haven't gotten my hands on actual healthcare data. We did have Jasmine O'Connell, who is the analytics manager for a startup in the healthcare space. Talking with her was pretty interesting. I mean, the conversation was more so about like she was looking to hire someone, and she reached out to me to say, hey, do you know anyone hiring out or looking for a job? And I was like, yeah, I can refer you to some people, but also will you come on the podcast and talk about your thought process? Because I think that was a pretty cool opportunity.
Yeah, healthcare, I've learned so much working with healthcare data. When you're working in industry, the pace is fast. Mm-hmm. The types of things that you're working on have impact, like they're looking to align their resources. It's like not in any way frivolous or menial work. Like it's it means a lot. So I was able to see a lot of the results of my labor right almost immediately. So I love working in healthcare, but since these skills are transferable, I found out I can kind of pivot a little bit, and that's why I'm working in higher education. But a lot of the things that I was doing in healthcare, I'm encountering here, because we want to know how we can better serve our students. And that's kind of what we're doing in healthcare. We want to serve our patient population, but we use data in order to make those decisions.
Yeah, data has become the new gold, so to speak.
It is.
So I feel like this podcast is like, I'm trying to get people a little to, I don't know, I wanted to demystify the jump into this space in this industry, because I remember when I was trying to get my first job. Well, it's funny because I tried to get my first job, and I realized, like, I don't think I want a job. I think I want to do consulting. So, but looking around, it was like, man, this seems really complex and intimidating to get into. But hearing
it seems that way.
Right. But like, and I want to keep reinforcing that, like that use case you brought up where they say HTML, PHP, machine learning. A lot of these companies don't really know what they're looking
Programming
for.
languages, all of them.
Right.
Technology, everything. It's like, what is happening in these job descriptions?
I don't know. I hope that like gets resolved sometime soon. I'm sure that's like a little bit of a growing pain for like the analytics and data science space, that it's going to be, because a lot of these companies, it's their first data scientist or analyst role, so they have no idea.
And so for the very first analyst or data scientist, it can be challenging, because you're coming in, you may be coming into a culture that's not data driven, but they want to be.
Right.
And so there's a lot of work that goes into that. It's not just, data science. It's, you have to educate people on what you do. You have to also let them know, no, I don't program in everything. I don't think anyone does. Sometimes HR just kind of takes things that they find on the internet and they just dump it into a job description. So yeah, that's interesting to interview for companies like that.
Yeah, that I'm starting to see like an uptick on LinkedIn post critiquing that specific concept.
It's really, really frustrating, because the recruiter doesn't really know what they're looking for in your resume. They're looking for keywords.
Right.
They don't really know what goes into any of those things. No, there's some great recruiters. I'm just talking about the ones that, they're told, okay, go find a data scientist. So the recruiter's like, oh, okay. I guess I'll just pull down some keywords and read a few things.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Okay, getting back to the education thing, a big part of like the YouTube growth that we've experienced is that I've made a course on the Tableau certification and the Power BI certification now. What is your perspective on the value? So it's like we've kind of touched on higher education. Then there's like the courses. I would say like kind of a third pillar of, I guess this is more like branding / just showing that you know a skill set. I guess it's validation in a way. What do you see as the value of a certification?
So I don't want to say certifications have no value. I think that they're great. But I think the real meat is in your projects that you've done. That is how you show that you have mastered that material.
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like I've started to caution people around certifications are not a magical ticket that's going to get you a job. And because I'm almost like bracing for blowback, because I've had 30,000 people sign up for the Power BI course, and I don't want 30,000 people mad at me for like being a snake oil salesman. It's like, this is something that can kind of go on your resume, but I think you're absolutely right. Like if you just have a certification but no experience, you're probably going to lose out to the person who has 5 years of experience and has quite a few wins under their belt.
Yeah, I started realizing that. So there's periods in my journey that I have been unemployed. So there's a few gaps on my resume. During that time, I was really trying to get those certifications, but I realized even when I added more certifications to my resume, I wasn't getting any more jobs or offers or interviews.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized the real power came into a portfolio or a Tableau public where
Right.
you're filling up your space with actual things that you've done. Then you can walk people through your projects, and that shows you know the material more so than that certification.
Absolutely. I've actually, I would say probably in the past month and a half, we've kind of hit on this new concept of, I guess it's not like I invented this concept, but reaching out to nonprofits and offering your services as an analyst. Like, for example, I'm the treasurer for a local nonprofit, and we got a $10,000 PPE loan to give out to local businesses. And I think, and I don't want to overpromise and underdeliver here, but I think I'm going to try to pick an intern from my class to then build out a impact report using that data. And they're going to have to actually do some data governance, but it's the executive director is like, we'll take all the help we can get, but it's like real data. It's also public facing. It's a form of marketing for the nonprofit, saying this is the impact we got, which they can take back to, government entities and say, hey, will you give us a grant? Look at the work we've done.
That's actually a really cool idea. And you said it's an internship, so the person will be paid.
Well, if the concept that if they come on and they do the podcast series, I will pay them. But I'm saying if you just have downtime, like while you were having that gap and you're unemployed, you could have proactively reached out to a nonprofit and done a small data analytics project to then, I think that would be probably more valuable than a certificate, like studying for a certification.
Yeah, and would they be able to take that and like, this is something I've done and this is my work that I've done for this nonprofit?
Well, I mean, that could be part of like the negotiation. Like you reach out to the executive director and I'm playing with the idea of like putting together a script that I can send out to the audience and say, here's how you should approach the executive director, and even have the executive director that I'm working with. So I'm the treasurer for Try Local First, which is a nonprofit that supports localism here in the Greensboro, High Point, Winston-Salem area in North Carolina. And I've been talking with the executive director about getting an intern, and she just loves the idea because she's doing all this kind of work. And if you approach them strategically, you're not going to take up a bunch of their time. Just say, hey, give me your data. I want to show the impact. I think that would be a great project. Like, number one, you're doing volunteering.
I can see the value in that, totally. For those of us that are introverts, like myself, I don't know how I would have approached that correctly, but I totally see the value in that. And maybe you can like have, like an introduction. You can like introduce the student instead of them reaching out to the company themselves, or you would do that.
This is like such an early phase idea, and I guess this is fine. Like, to the audience, those of you who are listening, feel free to comment and reach out to me and say, hey, this is a dumb idea.
I like the concept. I guess I think for me, I'm probably going way too deep into the thoughts, going, how would that work, and what about how can the student like put that type of work in their portfolio, and can they do that? And it would definitely have to be beneficial for them too.
Right. Well, because we actually did like a Tactical Thursday episode, which is like a 10-minute or less segment on the value of volunteering. And quick little pro tip, don't call it volunteering, call it philanthropy. Because that's what like the rich, successful people, but it's true though, there are very successful people that are very involved in the nonprofit philanthropy space. Like, for example, I have the former CFO of Wrangler Jeans on my finance committee. so I can like pull the student, work with the executive director, but also have the input from, you know, this high powered executive who might say, oh, you did a fantastic job. Here's a referral to my buddy at X company.
I like that.
So that's, you bring up such an interesting point about the introversion thing. I did sales before I went back to get my MBA.
Yeah, and I'm like, I have to talk to people.
Well, that's so funny though, because you're like you've got such a solid follow. I guess posting on LinkedIn is a little bit like you probably like think about what you're posting and edit it and like.
I do a whole bunch of edits, and sometimes I'll just outright delete stuff. I'm like, that doesn't sound right. Grammar is bad. This is bad. That didn't read well, and I'll just delete it. So, but when it comes to like approaching people, there's a finesse in this field that I'm now grasping and embracing, that you have to learn how to really be an effective communicator. You have to be comfortable talking to people to a certain extent. And yeah, you have to build relationships. So
Right.
it's some of us are a little uncomfortable with that because we haven't needed to do that before. But the higher you go in your field, you will have to do that.
Oh, that's a really interesting point. Man, we've gotten so far off the beaten trail of talking about the state of education, but I think this is important though, because this is what's not being told, you know, in the traditional higher ed.
Yeah.
I feel like that, like I'm almost thinking out loud, like I'm trying to pull your thoughts in, and I mean, you can. I love the critique of like, well, this isn't for introverts, and
it's going to be harder for an introverted person that we're not taught. I wasn't taught in classical education that you need to build relationships, you need to communicate your results, you need to be able to work with other teammates. That was not that needed to be like, that's like one of the pillars of data science, in my opinion, is emotional intelligence and working with others.
Yeah.
I didn't learn this until way later.
There does seem to be this prevalent mindset of hard skills over soft skills.
Absolutely.
And I don't know. I think I was talking with Samuel Eiten, who is he is a marketing analytics manager, but he was talking about how I think that it's just easier to package up and sell courses on hard skills, to where the soft skills, it's almost like dating advice. It's like, how do you teach someone how to get better at dating? It's like they just need to go and have bad relationships or good relationships and like learn. But it's kind of a similar thread of like, oh, you know, I had this manager and it was a terrible time. I was super stressed out. I was underperforming. But then I got another job where I loved what I was doing. I was, you know, a little bit brighter and cheerier, and it led to this other outcome. I mean, it's tough. It's hard to like teach that.
Yeah, and it was never even brought up, I guess. Is the thing that kind of bothers me, is that I actually didn't really know. Maybe I'm a little naive, but I didn't know how important those soft skills were going to be in the end. Because what I, like you're saying, emphasize on coding and algorithms. And then I didn't realize how often I would be in front of an audience speaking to them, or even a group of executives speaking to them, and having to communicate my results and building those relationships with people in other departments. And there was times when it's like you're being told to set up a meeting, and I'm like cringing because I know that means I need to talk to people. But yeah, you have to do that, and the sooner you know that's going to be a part of your career, then you're a little bit more open to it. It's less painful.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, I think that's one of the key things that they use as a sorting mechanism in the interview process. If you cannot explain what you're doing in layman's terms, then it's going to be tough for you to kind of navigate in a lot of different data science or analytics positions.
Yeah, I can see that. And I guess also in interviews, they're looking to see if you're a fit with their team and if your personality fits. And, you know, I've been in some interviews where they flat out told me that you are going to be by yourself most of the time, and you're going to be building out these solutions. And I immediately went, red flag, that's not true. I'm going to be talking to somebody.
Yeah, that's true.
and not just myself. There will be someone I'm going to be presenting to. I'll have to work with people. This is not a solo sport. So when I hear that, I already know, okay, this person isn't really sure of what this role is going to entail. Even though they're interviewing me for it, I doubt that I'll be working for it. I just think immediately, yeah, no, this is not what I thought it was going to be, because this person that's interviewing me is not really giving me the full picture.
Interesting. Yeah. Or they could just be trying to sell you. Like they could be picking up that you're an introvert and like, oh, we really like her. Let's tell her what she wants to hear.
That could be too. I have been sold like fairy tales in interviews, and you start working there, it's like, yeah, this is not what you told me it would be.
Oh, that's no good. All right. So I have one question to kind of close out the interview. So do you have any, and I actually haven't prepped you with this, so this, you're put on the spot here. Do you have any advice for those trying to break into the analytics space? Like one or two things?
Definitely find some data. Start working on projects. There's lots of places where you can find data. You definitely want to get practice. You want to work on projects, and you want to be able to comment your code, have summaries within your projects, go through step by step through a project, and be able to walk other people through your projects. So
Perfect.
do a project, walk people through it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. That was fantastic. Well, I really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you so much. I know that since we were just talking freely, it kind of went in different directions, but I like that because I think this is how people talk normally about things. It's not, question A and question B. It's, what do you think about this? And you just follow the string.
This is how I think. I'm like using these long form interviews to just suss ideas out and like get feedback in real time and then just share it with the audience. And then they can, I mean, it's really cool to see that I'm now getting people like commenting like, oh, in this interview and 35 minutes in, you said this, and I kind of disagree with that. And so it's almost like I'm crowdsourcing this like body of work, so to speak.
I actually do a lot of work like that. I ask other people for their opinions all the time. And it's like, I never considered that before. Thank you. But because, I have my way of doing things, but it may not be the best way. So always
Right.
looking to, hear what other people think.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate all your input. And you've got such a fascinating story.
Oh, thanks. And this was great. I took your class. I got to see the person behind the coursework, and you're just as nice as you were in your course.
Oh, thank you. Well, we'll see you guys in the next episode. Thanks.